Hi, my name is Lee Pemberton. I'm with Inspired Performance Solutions. Welcome to the first step to great leadership, creating a compelling vision. I'd like to start out with a quote. You'll see, would you tell me please which way I ought to go from here? She asked. Well, that depends a good deal on where you want to get to, was the reply. I don't much care where, she said. Then it doesn't matter which way you go. This is a quote from Alice in Wonderland. As she reached the crossroad and she sees the Cheshire Cat up in the tree, she asked him which way should she go. But since she didn't have a clear destination, it really didn't matter which path she went down. You see, our path really does determine our destination, or vice versa. We have to have a destination to have a clear path. All companies are going somewhere. All companies have goals and objectives. They really have something that they're trying to accomplish. Maybe they're trying to increase sales, maybe they're trying to cut costs, or they've got a new product line. But is it really in alignment with their vision? Do they have a vision? Does it really matter? Let me give you an example. I've decided I'm going to take my family on vacation. So I get them all together. I say, family, we're going to go on vacation to the happiest place on earth. Everybody gets excited. They think this is awesome. I said, okay, next week we're going to meet up again and we're going to talk about this vacation. So a week later they come back. My oldest son says, I've got an island picked out in the Caribbean, Dad, for us to go to. My daughter-in-law says, I thought we were going on the Dream Cruise. My youngest son says, wait a minute, I thought we were going to go play golf at St. Andrews, the old course. My wife said, well, I really thought we were going to the Smithsonian to take my grandson. You see, I got a problem. Because my vision, my destination, was Disney World. But I didn't clearly articulate that, so I ended up with 5 different destinations. Now let's start over again. Let's say I get the family together, but this time I say, family, picture this. It's dark, you're standing by a lake, there's fireworks going off everywhere. There's a celebration going on. We're at Epcot Center. We're celebrating the 4th of July, our country's birthday. Yes, we're at the happiest place on earth, Disney World in Orlando, Florida. Now, I've clearly articulated what my vision is, where I want to go, when I want to get there, and I've actually helped paint the picture. Now they're all excited, but they're all on the same page with me. They all understand that we're going to get to go to Disney World. You see, it really does matter if you really have a clear vision. So when you think about your company and you're creating this vision, you need to know where do you want to go in a year, 5 years, 10 years. And then you need to know how are you going to communicate that. Well, one of the things I would recommend to you is use something called spaced repetitive learning. And this is what all great advertisers do. So for example, if I said the line, like a good neighbor, you would finish that with, State Farm is there. The reason you know that is because of spaced repetitive learning. They've told you that over and over. In their TV ads, their radio ads, their print ads, it's the same message, it's the same slogan over and over. So that's how you need to communicate. But think about this, how are you going to communicate in lots of different ways? Are you going to write it down and put it in their office? Are you going to make a poster and put it up on the wall? Are you going to put it in your emails? Are you going to start every meeting with it? Whatever you need to do, you need to be clear with your vision and you need to articulate it over and over. Because you see, this is your most important responsibility as a leader, is you have to have a destination and you have to make sure everybody knows what that is. So you shape your vision and then you communicate your vision. So let's start with another quote here. This is Father Theodore Hesburgh, the former president of Notre Dame University. He says, the very essence of leadership is you have to have a vision. It's got to be a vision you articulate clearly and forcefully on every occasion. You can't blow an uncertain trumpet. This really sums it up. You have to be clear. It has to be focused. Everyone on your team needs to know what the vision of your company is. So when you think about it, it needs to be simple, it needs to be understandable, you need to direct people where you think your company's going. But I want to add another piece to that. I want to make sure you understand why. Why are we going to this destination? Why did we choose this destination? When you do that, you really empower your people. You start to delegate to them. Here's the role that I need you to fill to help us get there. Because now they understand why, not just where we're going. Very important. As you think about your vision, a couple of things you need to consider. First of all, where's your company been? That's important. What's the past? But also, where do you want to go? What is the future going to look like? When you think about that, that's really going to help you figure out the plan. The other thing that's really important for you is that you live this vision every day. People look at more what you do than what you say. So make sure you're living it every day in every way. Because if you don't, this is going to be very hollow and shallow. And people just aren't going to follow. They're going to say, well, he's not doing it. Why should I do it? Very important. So if you're thinking about creating and communicating this vision, think about this as a potential for your company. The potential your company has to reach. And when your employees start to see that this company has great potential, now you've created a common goal, a common focus or direction for everyone to work towards. Got everybody on the same page. The other thing I want you to factor in is your values and your principles. Don't create a vision that doesn't support your values and principles. You can't live something that you don't believe in, because people know what you believe in, and they won't follow you if you go someplace that's fake, phony, or fraud. So we start to think about what is a compelling vision. There's a couple things I wanted to show you. Let's go to the next slide. First of all, a compelling vision should be very insightful based on your present situation. It should be a good choice. You should look at all your options and make sure that this is the best choice. Make sure that it's clear and that it's motivating, that it's going to drive your company forward. And of course, make sure it's achievable. We don't want to stretch ourselves so far that people think, man, that vision is so far in the future that we'll never get there. Very important. Let's look at the next slide. You'll see that I've come up with some questions for you to ask yourself. We've talked about, where do you want to be in the next 3 to 5 years? But think about this. What is your company really good at? Don't try to be something you're not. And how competitive are you in your market? And if you're not number one in your market, what are your competitors doing? And particularly, what do they do better than you? So you can kind of identify things that you need to change. So when you think about these questions, the most important piece of all is, how are you going to judge success? How are you going to measure if you're having success, if you're reaching that destination that you want to reach? Because if you don't have a way to measure it, then how are you going to know if you get off the trail, if you end up on the wrong path? So make sure you have good measurements. If you have measurements in place now and you're not happy with those, make sure that you consider changing those. So let's look at the next slide. So once we've got the vision, we've got 6 things that I've put up here that I think are really important when you're thinking about communicating this. First of all, make sure it's simple. Don't overthink it. Make it simple and understandable. Make sure that you use multiple ways to communicate it. We talked a little bit about that, but be creative. Use your spaced repetitive learning, but use other things as well. Make sure that it's always visible. It's always there in front of your people. Really important. As we said before, make sure that you're living this, that you're leading by example. You are the leader. People are watching you all the time. They'll do what you do. And then most important is to make sure you have open, honest, two-way communication. Remember, communication is the exchange of ideas. So it's not just you talking and then listening, but it really is, are you listening to them? Do they feel free to share their ideas? If there's a problem, can they share it with you? But also, if they have a great idea, are they bringing that to you? So open, honest communication is really important. Without this, that's when you start to really have misalignment. You end up with power struggles. You end up with people that are trying to protect their turf. You just don't get where you want to get to. So let's go to the next slide. When we think about vision on the top of the triangle, that's supported by mission. And mission really is about, what are we going to do in the next month, 6 months? So it's kind of a short-term vision. Critical success factors. These are things that we want to do every day. These are things that we have to do to make sure that we're going to our destination. And the way we make sure that's done is with goals. And we need to make sure each employee has goals. And what behaviors maybe do they need to change or do differently? So when you think about goals, make sure they follow the SMART model. Make sure they're specific. Make sure they're measurable. Make sure that those goals are attainable, that they're realistic, and most important, make sure they have deadlines, that they're timely. If you do that, you're really going to get down to this last step, and that's action steps. And that is, people are going to take the action that they do every day. What do they need to do on their job to achieve the most important thing? And that's results. That's what we're looking for, isn't it? That's why we're in business, to achieve results. That's why you have to have this triangle in alignment. If everything's in alignment, it points to results. So let's look at the next slide. What happens if everything's in alignment until we get to the bottom and then our action steps are out of alignment? Well, what happens is people are doing things in their daily job that aren't directly affecting results because they're not in alignment with our vision. It's a strong indicator that you haven't clearly communicated what your vision is, where you expect this company to go. So we always need to make sure that all of our action steps are pointing towards results. As I said earlier, if you don't have this, you will have power struggles. You'll have people who want to protect their turf or have that silo mentality. They don't want to work with the other departments. One of the things that's a strong indicator that I hear is the term, well, that's not the way we've always done it. Well, people have to be willing to change. They have to be willing to do things different behaviors. You can't always do things the way you've always done it if you want to reach a new destination. So when you're thinking about decisions, particularly business decisions that you do on a daily basis, always think, how does this impact my client? Is it positive or negative? Because if it impacts the client negatively, maybe you need to rethink that. Because our client happiness is what drives results. So we have to do that. But another thing that's often overlooked when it comes to making decisions, that is, how does this affect our employees? We need to make sure we have a good place to work, where people are happy, where they want to get up in the morning and come to work. So when we're making decisions, we always need to know, how does this impact the people? Let me give you an example. The Wall Street Journal did a survey, and they asked people, what was the most important thing at work? It wasn't salary or wages. It wasn't an opportunity for advancement. It wasn't flexibility in their schedule. It was open and honest communication. That's what people wanted. They wanted to know that the people at the top were communicating down. They wanted to know that the communication was coming up from the bottom and that the executives were listening. They wanted to know their opinion counted. Remember, communication is an exchange of ideas, not talking and listening. So people wanted to make sure that they worked with a company that had open, honest communication. So let's look at another slide here. And this is an example of an exercise I want you to try to see if you really have this going on in your company. I want you to ask your employees to describe 5 or 10 things that they do every day. What are their job responsibilities? Then I want you to ask their managers the same question. I think a lot of times what you'll find is these don't match up. For example, in this example, you'll see that the employee says their job is to stock shelves. Ask the manager the same question, and they said your job is to manage inventory. These don't match up. So we need to work with that employee and make them understand what their role is. This is really important. This is something that all good leaders do over and over to make sure that people understand what their role is in reaching that vision. Let's look at the next one. I've created a list here of these things that might be going on in your organization. And I think every organization probably has 1 or 2, but if you start to see 5, 6, 7 or more of these, you might have a problem. For example, do you have too many meetings? Do you have communication problems? Is there time management problems? Are you just not reaching your objectives? Are you not reaching your sales goals? Do you have high employee turnover? If you do have many of these things, it doesn't mean that you're a bad leader, but it does mean that you have some leadership issues you need to address. They need to be fixed. One of the ways you can do that is with a good, clear vision and communicating that over and over so that people understand this company's going somewhere, that we're not just going through the motions. So when you think about this, let's go back to what we were talking about at the beginning with Alice in Wonderland. Alice had no destination in mind, so it didn't really matter which path she went down. So she was just reacting to the situation. Great organizations, great companies are proactive. And the way you are proactive is through the idea of creating a vision, communicating that vision. And when you do this and you get your people on board, you end up with powerful results.